Welcome back. All right, Panic Index. It's been 2 weeks since the last Panic Index. So I've done it a little bit different in terms of the magnets this time. Bart Simpson at the top, looking very happy riding his skateboard. That's the top line for the happiest of fans, media, and teams and all that. Second line is for everything's okay, not bad, might be a little bit of concern. Jim Halpert here means concern. There's definitely some concern there. The panic face speaks for itself on the panic index, and the little red phone at the bottom indicates teams that are waiting to find out where they're going to draft at the draft lottery, waiting for a phone call saying, hey, you won the draft lottery. Congratulations. You're number one. All right. I've got the teams arranged in reverse alphabetical order for this one, meaning we're starting with Winnipeg. It's different for me to start with Winnipeg. I know that because of the way the alphabet works, Winnipeg's often at the end. So, Winnipeg's to start things off, and we'll put them right at the top. Why not? After last night's win over Washington, I think there's some concern in the land of Jets fans should be, tamped down just at least a little bit. The Winnipeg Jets have had a fantastic season. It will be interesting to see once the playoffs roll around what happens, but they've put themselves in a position where they are going to be one of the favorites in the West, and that's really all that they can do. The Washington Capitals belong right next to them. And obviously the speculation of could this end up being the Stanley Cup final, I would answer with since one of them's going to win the President's Trophy, maybe not. But yes, I can understand the desire that fans may have to see these teams in the playoffs against one another, especially after last night's game. And then when you consider the first matchup between them two, the Jets and the Caps are a really interesting matchup in that it seems really, really close, and yet they're very different teams, and they win in very different manners. All right, Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas, they've won, 4 in a row right now? I don't see any reason not to put them at the top row, even though with the bigger magnets, I may run out of room. So stay tuned, because I may not have enough room for everybody in one of these rows, and we may have to get creative. But Vegas, I believe, belongs in the top row as well. They're very likely to win their division now with the win they got last night, and they look great. They're really rounding into form quite nicely. Vancouver. Now, I always have Vancouver next to the Panic. Is that where Vancouver belongs right now? Well, they don't have Pettersson. They don't have Höglander. They're still 5 points below the playoff line. Yeah, I think Vancouver belongs next to the Panic. I think that's where Vancouver goes. And the reality is that Vancouver's in this really undesirable position where some of their key players are hurt. There are some players who've underperformed. So going into this summer, if the team misses the playoffs, and it looks like they're going to, the question becomes, do they need to do some sort of a retool? Do they need more young players? Or are they going to be able to rearm themselves this summer and go right back for it next year? I think they're going to rearm and try to go for it again next year. But is that the right decision to make? We'll see. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Utah. It's hard not to put Utah in the top row. But I'm going to say that with how far back Utah is now, I'm going to just put them on the second line, not necessarily the top line. Things are still good. Utah at this point, it does not look like it's going to make the playoffs because St. Louis isn't being nice. St. Louis is not leaving things open where teams can just make the playoffs. So, kind of rude of them, to be honest. Maybe Minnesota leaves that door open. No idea, but we'll see. But yeah, Utah goes, for me, in the second line. Still happy. Not necessarily exuberant, but maybe more thinking along the lines of, so this draft thing, let's see how this all works out for us this year. Toronto. I'm going to put Toronto next to concern. Now, last night, they get the win over Philadelphia. 7-2 win over Philadelphia. I don't want to belittle that. The thing is, Philadelphia came into that game having won one of their last 10, and Philadelphia is just on an absolute crash out of any kind of playoff contention. So I'm going to leave Toronto next to the concerned. They were 4-5-1 in their last 10 going into last night's game, which means at the very least concerned. I'm not putting them next to Panic, though, because it's a bit early for the Panic. Tampa. I'm going to put Tampa on the second line. Tampa got a win last night, too. The Tampa Bay Lightning are playing well, and they're in the race for that first place spot in the Atlantic. Florida, Tampa, Toronto. Should be a lot of fun seeing who wins that division and what a dogfight we're going to have down the stretch for that spot. St. Louis belongs at the top, and because St. Louis is at the top, we already got 4 in the top row. So with the bigger magnets, I may end up having to go around. So, like I said, I will get creative. I do obviously have the markers for it if I need to go around. But St. Louis, I can't justify putting them anywhere but at the top. They're steamrolling towards the playoffs. That one win over Montreal last night, that was ridiculous. That was an absolutely ridiculous game for St. Louis. And so the Blues, to me, belong in that top row, and look out for them in the playoffs. Seattle's waiting for that phone call. Seattle, obviously, far out of the playoffs. And so at this stage, I think they're still 16 points out. Yeah, they're waiting for that draft lottery to see where they're going to be at and everything. So how far are we into this? We're a little over 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 teams. 4 of them in the top row. I'm being really generous. San Jose, they go in that bottom row too. This is where things get difficult because it's reverse alphabetical, and I'm seeing it right now. I'm looking at the teams upcoming. But San Jose has been in this position all season. We knew they were not going to be a playoff team. We knew they weren't. I don't want to say we knew they weren't going to be good, because that kind of tramples on what Mike Grier's been doing. I think they're a better team this year than last year, and they're set up for future success. Just, it's not this year, which was the plan. Pittsburgh. Now, does Pittsburgh go next to the telephone, or does Pittsburgh go next to the panic? I'm going to put them next to the telephone because obviously they're not making the playoffs this year. I think that's pretty obvious. I know they're still 6 points out because Montreal lost last night too, but they only have 9 games left, and being that far back with 9 games left, the math doesn't math well. And then there's the number of teams they'd have to jump past to get into the playoffs. So even if Montreal doesn't win another game from here, Pittsburgh's road isn't that much easier because the Islanders, the Rangers, Columbus, there are a number of teams between Pittsburgh and that playoff spot that could jump in ahead of them. Philadelphia. Yep, Philadelphia's in the bottom too. So now we got the bottom, Philadelphia waiting for the draft lottery. The Philadelphia Flyers, I think more than anything, they need probably another creative forward, another speedy young forward in that lineup. So thinking in the draft, you draft probably a center, because in the entry draft, centers are always highly coveted, far more than wingers. And really, I think it's simple. Centers really do run things on the ice, and they're more integral to winning. And you can always put a center on the wing if you need to for a while. It's much more difficult to put a wing in the middle. You can train up a right winger or left winger to play center, but it does take longer. So, the Flyers, I would think probably drafting a center. Let me know your thoughts. Ottawa, I'm going to put them here. I do feel like with Ottawa, last night's loss against Buffalo, concerning, but not concerning enough. I don't think that they're in the worried category yet. Haven't they still won 7 of their last 10? So Ottawa clearly is in a position where they can make the playoffs. They're in full control over their playoff destiny, which makes losses like last night frustrating, but it happens. And so I think Ottawa will bounce back. They've bounced back before this season. I see no reason why they won't bounce back from this as well. And they should still be a playoff team. I'd be very surprised if they weren't. Rangers. Is it panic for the Rangers? I don't feel like it is. I don't feel like for the Rangers it's panic. Like, if the Rangers don't make the playoffs, that sucks, obviously, for them. There's a debate now about if their draft pick ends up being 13th. Do they just let that go in that trade? Because it's top 13 protected. They may not want to lose next year's first-round draft pick, because they may be concerned that what if that's the number 1 draft pick, and next year's number 1 draft pick considered to be a pretty big deal. So, yeah, the New York Rangers are in an interesting position right now. I feel like it's more concern than panic. That's how I feel anyways. The Islanders, kind of in the same spot, aren't they? I mean, the Islanders have been playing better lately. They've got themselves in a position where they could make the playoffs. You know what? I'm going to be an optimist. I'm going to throw them on that row there. I'm going to say the Islanders belong there. Look, they're only 1 point out of the playoffs right now, which I've already seen all the comments of, well, they're boring. We don't want them in the playoffs again. The players don't care. They're going to go out and play their best, and if they make the playoffs, they're not going to apologize. They're going to be like, we're really sorry we made it. Apparently the Habs got knocked out because we got in, and they're more entertaining than we are, so we're talking to Gary Bettman about letting them play our games. No, it's not how that works. The New Jersey Devils, yeah, that's a panic. And it's interesting that the Canucks and the Devils are the two I've got at the panic level because, of course, the Canucks did beat the Devils last time out. But obviously, I do feel like both of these teams have good reason to panic. New Jersey's been mediocre for months. The Devils need to get healthier. They've got some key injuries throughout this lineup, and it's really made their road to the playoffs far more. I mean, they're obviously a playoff team in that they're going to make the playoffs, but are they going to last? Are they going to get swept in the first round by Carolina? Is that what we're going to see? So, obviously, some reason for panic, I believe, with New Jersey. Nashville's been waiting for the draft lottery for a while. I don't feel like there's a reason for panic there yet, although the idea that this summer they might be able to go out and find pieces that'll fix the issues in Nashville. I don't necessarily agree with that because they've got some guys signed to long-term contracts who are aging, and I mean everybody's aging, so I should backtrack a bit. Older players who are going to be another calendar year older next season. It just gets more and more difficult, I think, for them to get back to where they might have wanted to be when they signed those contracts in Nashville. And their cap hits don't go down. So Nashville to me anyways is kind of up against it. Montreal. Is it top row or second row for Montreal? Like, this is a team that wasn't supposed to be here. Yeah, I talked myself into it. Montreal's not supposed to be here. They're not supposed to be in this position where they can make the playoffs. Making the playoffs this year, no pressure, no concern. And it makes Kent Hughes look like he's a fantastic general manager if this team makes the playoffs ahead of schedule. Seeing that line of Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, that line's fantastic. It's electric watching him play. So, yeah, Montreal, that's where they go. Minnesota, I'm going to put them next to concerned. They're still a playoff team, right? But they're missing in the same way as New Jersey. They're missing key parts of their roster at a really tough time of the season to be missing those parts. And they need Kaprizov back. They need their defense to all be healthy at the same time. I know there's Wild fans probably going, we wish. Yeah. Yep. And I wish that as well. I'd love to see Minnesota succeed. I've said that for many years now. And it'll be a shame if they make the playoffs and get knocked out in the first round again. That honestly will be a shame. The Kings just tied a record for wins at home in a season, so I'm going to put the Kings in the top row. The LA Kings have been playing some really strong hockey at home. Their road record is still below 500. Is that concerning? Sure. But if they have home ice advantage against the Oilers in the first round, that could be huge. And then you have to assert your home ice advantage. You have to win both games, 1 and 2 at home, and then really put that pressure on the Oilers. But yeah, the Kings, so far, things are going really well for them, and they're ready to set a record for wins at home. Florida, I'm going to put Florida in the second row, and I know that there may not be any level of concern with Panthers fans because the expectation is that players who are hurt will be back for the playoffs, and a player who is suspended will return for the playoffs. But I'm not going to put them in the top row because I don't feel like Florida's been playing particularly great hockey. They've been playing well enough that I'm still leaving them in the second row, but it's just something's a little off. It is an 82-game schedule. They did this last year too, and then the last couple of weeks going to the playoffs, they just turned it on again. So we'll see if Florida's able to flip that switch in about a week's time when we get to that couple of weeks before the end of the playoffs. Or the start of the playoffs, the end of the playoffs. The Oilers. So where do the Oilers belong? Concerned? I think so. The Oilers have had their ups and downs as everybody else has. The Oilers right now dealing with missing McDavid and Draisaitl, likely for the whole week, which isn't a reason for panic, but it does mean they're highly likely at this point to be on the road to start the playoffs against the LA Kings. And the concern right now for the Oilers is make sure you got everybody healthy. But yeah, I still think there's some reason for some concern there. Detroit. I'm going to put Detroit next to the Panic. And honestly, I know at this stage they're likely going to be waiting for the phone for the draft lottery, but this could have been the year. And as close as Detroit is, we're likely going to look back on just, a losing streak that cost them playoffs. Did they keep Lalonde too long? That kind of thing. So once the regular season's done, a series that I like to do is how they missed the playoffs. And it looks like this year I'll be talking about Detroit again. And the good news for Detroit fans is I go in reverse order of the standings. So it would be San Jose or Chicago first. Detroit would not be early on that playlist. So you'd have a little bit of time for those wounds to at least heal up a bit before I start discussing what went wrong and how they missed the playoffs. Dallas. Top row or second row for Dallas? I'm going to go with second row. Just because personally watching Dallas, I do see cracks here and there. And it's nothing major, so it's nothing that tells me that they belong in this row. But I can't really put them in that row either. Just that consistency from game to game. And sometimes it's Otter. Otter has a great game, and then he has an iffy game. And so... yeah, I'm going to put Dallas on the second row. Maybe I'm being a bit too harsh. These things do happen if that is the case. Columbus. I think they're close enough that they're still technically in the hunt. There's not going to be a Panic in Columbus. So I'm not putting Columbus next to Panic. Concern? Concern because... there are parts of this roster that are good. There's parts of Columbus, the team that work, and then there's parts that just don't. And so you have to wonder how you're going to fix that this summer. Is the goaltending going to be good enough going forward? If not, who's going to replace him? I read an interesting article yesterday on how thin the goaltending market is this summer, with the number of pending unrestricted free agent goaltenders who've re-signed with the team that owned them. So for teams that are looking to revamp their goaltending to pick up a goaltender, it's going to be tough to find what you're looking for on the market, either via free agency or via trade. And Columbus has tried to trade Verzlikins before. I'm sure they'll try it again this summer. So I'm putting them under concern, more of a looking forward kind of thing than this season. Just so what's the plan going to be and what is everything going to look like? Colorado belongs in the top row. The Avs, absolutely top row. I don't think there's any reason for any concern with the Avalanche. Playing very well right now, rounding into form. Stop me if you've heard this before, because yeah, it's Colorado. It's what they do. They're a good team, and they're good every year. And so yeah, they're back. They look really strong. That game against Detroit yesterday, they made it look easy. And that's the scary thing. They make it look easy against teams, and they're going to play against Dallas in the playoffs. In all likelihood, very, very unlikely that's not the matchup, so should be interesting. Chicago, right down here. Chicago Blackhawks, still in the process of their rebuild. The building part has started, obviously, and this summer that building will continue. But at this stage, Kyle Davidson's going to be waiting to find out what draft choice he's going to have, where he's going to pick. 1, 2, 3, could it be 4? Calgary. The Flames, second row. I don't know. I don't think the Flames are going to make it. I think the Blues are going to block them out, and I don't think the Wild are catchable for Calgary at this point either. But I'm going to put them on the second row because they've overachieved. I don't think there's any reason for any concern. I don't think that anybody's thinking about the draft lottery right now in Calgary. So second row, not top row because they're not above the playoff line. To me, not being above the playoff line would make it difficult for me to put Calgary in the top row. But it's just my argument. If you want them to be in the top row, you can go ahead and Photoshop something together. Why not? Carolina, Canes go in the top row. Yep, and looking at which teams I have left, that's the last team that's going to go in the top row. It's Carolina. Even after last night's loss against Nashville, which my video had nothing to do. If I could actually change a team's fortunes, it would work against all of them. And it just maybe teams have ups and downs. So Carolina, they got goalied last night. Saros just decided he was stealing one. Nashville has done that this year. They just they play better against really good teams, and that's what I felt like happened with Carolina. It's not that Carolina played a bad game or played down to Nashville or anything. Buffalo, yeah, I'm using the Buffalo Slug logo. I grabbed that this morning and thought, yeah, I can use that. I haven't used that on the board in a very, very long time. And since I do like to use a cornucopia of various logos from various eras, why not? Because since we don't have all the fancy graphics on this channel that other channels do, I try to provide some kind of a variable to my videos. So I went with the Buffalo Slug. Obviously, the Sabres. And the weird thing with the Sabres is there's parts of this team that are actually pretty good, but they're not in the hunt for a playoff spot. I don't have magic words for how to fix what's gone wrong in Buffalo, and we've talked about it plenty of times. I hope it gets fixed. I'd love to see them in the playoffs. Boston is also waiting for the draft lottery to find out where they're going to pick. It was obvious in that 7-2 loss against the Kings. They just don't have it, which is okay. At this point in time, I am fine with them just not having it. The Boston Bruins traded away basically their heart when they traded away Marchand. They traded away one of the best blue liners I think they've had in the last 10 years when trading off Carlo. So I'm not surprised by how much the Bruins have crashed or how badly they've been playing. But yeah, the Bruins, it happens. It's one of those, and I'm fine with it in that they need draft picks and prospects in Boston. They really need an infusion of young talent. And while Liesel may end up being a very good forward, they need some new young, like top-notch prospects in that organization. Anaheim, is this going to fit? It does. And Anaheim goes in that same row. It doesn't fit at the end of the row, but you guys can tell it's right lined up with these ones as well. The Anaheim Ducks, really good, strong run this year. Maybe they end up finishing at 500. I think it'd be great if they did. But if they don't, that's okay too. The Ducks have shown a lot of progression. A lot of their young stars have started to really come into their own. So, yeah, Anaheim for me. Right in that row. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 teams that I feel like are waiting for that draft lottery to see where they're going to pick. Just 3 in the panic, and then, yeah, it all ended up fitting after all. All right. Good job, Hockey Guy. You didn't screw it up for once. Anyways, there you go. But you let me know how I screwed it up in the comments, because otherwise I'll never know. Thank you guys so much for all your support as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you may not have done so already. Thank you guys so much for everything. I will talk to you again soon.